Vusi, in your entrepreneurial journey, in your business journey, have you cried before? What made you cry? And what wiped your tears away?
I've had many of those moments. I'm trying to think of.
Take your time.
So, some time ago, I had some people working for me who were very close to me in the sense that, I'm sorry, can I take a segue? For those of us who are believers, you know that in the good book, there is the 72 that Christ sent to open up new territories. There is the 12 who were his disciples, but there is the 3 with whom he ascended who got to see Christ be godlike. You all know what I'm talking about. And so when this is my model in how I build my businesses. I have my 72, my 12, and 3. My 72 understand the vision and are strong enough on the vision to go and execute it. They don't need to like the vision bearer. They just get the vision. The 12 not only understand the vision, but they also have to be approximate to the vision bearer. In other words, the 12 have proximity to you. The 3 not only understand the vision and the vision bearer, but they also have access to the vision bearer. So they get to see the vision bearer most vulnerable and strongest. The mistake I think a lot of us make earlier on in our journeys is we don't know how to differentiate between these. And so you think about people in their line functions. This is my head of finance, head of HR, head of marketing, head of X, Y, and Z. When actually people carry with them a particular spirit. And you can have the wrong spirit doing the right job. And then it gets destroyed. So there was a time in particular we were just about to scale our venture business, our venture finance business. And I had 2 people in that business who I trusted with my life. And then I grew to learn that they were stealing from me. But I didn't just grow to learn that they were stealing from me, it was that they were stealing from me when we were going through our hardest time. Now listen, human beings are human beings, right? But there is something insidious about me taking food from the table when you're barely eating yourself. This was at the time we went through just over 2 years where I didn't pay myself a salary. This was at that time. And at that time, they were stealing. And not just stealing a little bit of money, I'm talking millions on millions on millions. The hardest thing was, these people weren't just in my business, they were family. So now you go through a million different calculations. Is it me? Is it how I manage this business? Is it how I've managed them? Is it how I've created this environment? Is it and the technical you, the trained you, the Vusi that has an MBA, how do you know somebody has an MBA? They'll tell you. The Vusi that has an MBA is going through, we've got the risk processes and the well, how did we miss this? But the human being in you is still going, excuse my language, shit. How do you steal from me when you know I'm barely managing to make payment for my kids' school fees? How do you steal when that happens? I gave up in that business over a period of 2 months, probably about 10 times. And when I say gave up, I mean I gave up. But there was always this voice at the back of my head that said, just go tomorrow and try again. Just tomorrow. So this is a very specific incident actually. I remember I had one specific incident. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was sitting in the office. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm looking at all this information. I've got my risk people telling me that this is actually a case of fraud. You should be opening a case. Then there's the back of my head that goes, but if I open a case, it carries also many other implications that I've got to explain to family. I've got to explain to partners. I've got to explain. It's a disaster. It's a mess. So if I do it, there is a mess. If I don't do it, I let them get away with the mess. Right? It was a Wednesday afternoon and I just left. It was like 11 o'clock. I left and I remember I went to the gym, then I went home. My trick has always been this: just show up tomorrow. That's it. There's no rocket science. Like, just show up tomorrow, 7:30, and try one more day. Just one more day. One more day. And so all I kept doing was one more day, then one more day, and then one more day. There are some of you who followed me here for long enough to know that I've not always professed my belief in my Lord and Savior. It was that time that brought me close to God. Because there is something about how God uses isolation to create elevation. And so when you're isolated from the world, you can hear his voice a bit better. And then you realize God was always talking to you, you just weren't tuned in. Does that make sense? For those of us in the room who are old enough, you remember when I was growing up, the TV had the thing used to turn the dial to get the frequency. I realized at that time God's frequency was always there. Vusi wasn't tuned in. Here's why I wasn't tuned in. Because the magazines were putting me on covers. It's so cool, right? Because you're tuned into that frequency. The magazines were putting me on covers. My garage had a fleet of supercars. Ladies love me. I'm on my cool J. Never mind, I'm Zulu. It's not my fault. But I learned at that time in my season of isolation that if I serve man, I will always be disappointed. I've got to serve something greater. So what wiped my tears was the recognition that I'm not called here to wear a good suit or speak good English or be wealthy. I'm called on for something a lot more intentional than that. And once I plugged into that, that's been my fire. Now the crazy thing, and I will close, is this. The crazy thing is, the more God has elevated me, the more people the enemy has sent after me. The great thing is because I know victory is certain, I don't care what the process looks like. So in fact, I'll say it a different way. I look for the enemy's people to attack me because now I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Because if they're not attacking me, it means I'm not moving in the right path. In South Africa, we have this bird, I think you guys might have it here, it's called a hadida. But it's a specific kind of bird. And one of the things this bird does is it lays an egg in the ground, right? And when you walk towards where it lays an egg, it'll run in the other direction and make a noise at you. Basically, it'll push you in a different direction to distract you so that you don't move in the direction of where the eggs are. Yeah, faith is exactly like this. When the enemy's making a noise, he's trying to pull you in a different direction. But the wisdom has got to be staying still and going in the direction you were going anyway, because that's where the blessing has been. So yeah, man, look, for me, and you know when you cry, entrepreneurs, we don't just cry tears, ne? We cry everything. You cry tears, then you cry biblical verses, then you cry. Have you ever cried a logo? Like, have you ever cried so much you go and change the logo because you're convinced if you change the logo, stuff's going to be different? Entrepreneurs know what I'm talking about. Like, have you ever cried a website domain? You're like, maybe my domain is wrong. Maybe it must be vusi.ai. This .com is a problem. Because that's what we do, right? So when we cry, what we also do in our crying is we cry in like many different ways. So you start going, what is it? And what I have learned is this: peace be still. You're crying and you're in your season because God is using your tears to fertilize your ground. Just stay in it, be still, keep going. You're gonna make it. If you weren't making it, the enemy wouldn't be shouting at you, so you're good, keep going.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you think you've heard everything from Vusi,